If everyone can please take your seats, we're going to get started in 1 minute here.
Good morning. Thank you so much for coming to our conference. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to come and welcome as well as interact with our guests that have spent almost 20 hours flying to come to talk to us. So thank you. I'm very honored this morning to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Arthur Mutambara. Professor Arthur Mutambara is the Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, where his key functions include working with the Prime Minister in policy formulation by the Cabinet of Zimbabwe, as well as supervision of policy implementation. He is in charge of 3 key efforts that include development of a shared national vision, crafting a new brand for Zimbabwe, and development of national infrastructure master plan. Prior to political leadership, Professor Mutambara was the CEO of a consulting firm, Africa Technology and Business Institute in South Africa. Before that, he was a director of electronic payments at Standard Bank in Joburg. Before he went to Africa, he spent 7 years in USA and 4 years in UK. He started out his career as a management consultant at McKinsey, and prior to McKinsey, he was a professor of aeronautics and astronautics department at MIT in Massachusetts. He also taught graduate and undergraduate classes in decentralized control systems, robotics, and mechatronics. He was also a visiting research scientist at NASA. Dr. Mutambara has written 3 electrical engineering books that are widely used in engineering graduate schools in Europe, US, as well as in Japan. He is a Rhodes Scholar with a master's in computer engineering, a PhD in robotics and mechatronics from Oxford University, and a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from University of Zimbabwe. Please welcome me in, join me in welcoming Professor Mutambara to Duke.
Thank you, Martin, for that introduction. I want to thank Duke University for giving me this opportunity to share with you. And I want to recognize the colleague speakers who are here with me, and in particular, Advocate Madumise, who has already done my work for me. So my task is going to be very simple. My motivation today is to emphasize the link between business opportunity and social impact. The problem we have in Africa and all over the world is that people are very good at taking advantage of business opportunities and making money. Others are very good at making a difference, and they want to talk about solving poverty and social problems. But I'm saying you must do the two together for sustainability. If you just talk social, talk political, talk making a difference in Africa, and don't know how to make money, it's unsustainable. If you just make money for yourself without uplifting people out of poverty, again, unsustainable. My motivation is to drive the agenda of new economic growth in Africa, but emphasizing the link between business opportunity and social impact. What is the context? There's been new growth in Africa, and there's improved country competitiveness in Africa. So there are definite business opportunities there, but more importantly, there's scope to uplift African communities out of poverty. What are the new facts? Advocate, I'm going to do the homework for the students here. There are 7 out of 10 of the top fastest growing economies in Africa. They are Ethiopia, #1, Mozambique, Tanzania, then Congo, Ghana, Zambia, and Nigeria, in that order. That's projection for 2011 to 2015. So when you hear them talk about 7, that is what we're talking about there. That's huge. 7 out of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world for 2011 to 2015 are African. And that means there's something going on in Africa. By the way, it doesn't mean that we're now better than America. It means we're starting from a low base. So you got growth. Maybe other people are saturated with growing. We're still growing. But growing means business now. Growing means opportunities. Hey, what's happened to my system here? You got sabotage. Okay. Technology, can you assist my brother? What's happened to my technology? My thing is not responding. Kind of frozen, eh? Okay, yeah, that one, yeah. That one. Okay. Right, okay. Yeah, okay, that's it. So that's what we're talking about now. So those are the 7. Between 2001 and 2010, there were only 6. Again, a good number, but they're growing. The 6 were Angola, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Chad, Mozambique, and Rwanda for the period from 2001 to 10. What are we talking about in Africa? We're talking about what has been called Asia-type growth, around 10% on a sustainable basis. Here are the numbers. Angola was 11.1%, and then Nigeria 8.9%, Ethiopia 8.4%. That's in the last decade. In the new decade, Ethiopia is #1, 8.1%. Mozambique 7.7%, Tanzania 7.2%, Congo 7.0%, Ghana 7.0%, Zambia 6.9%, Nigeria 6.8%. I want to emphasize the opportunity, how it is measured by others. This is The Economist. You can see that we are moving. In fact, we are the 2nd fastest growth region after Asia right now. And in 10 years, the projection is that we're going to overtake Asia as the center of growth. What's even more interesting, the African middle class is going to be bigger than that of China in 10 years' time. Now, the issue is, who is going to take advantage of this growth? Are we going to allow others to benefit without Africa itself benefiting? But my argument is, if you link social impact to unlocking business value, everyone is going to win. Whoever invests in Africa is going to win. The Africans are going to win. These are the new facts which we must take advantage of as we discuss today at Duke. Here's another change. Forget what they taught you at Duke Business School. I'm teaching you now the new philosophy of life. Don't go out there looking for money. That's not the paradigm. Identify a human need. Identify a problem in the world. And then go and seek to solve that problem. When you do solve that problem, cash will come. Money should be a byproduct. The driver should be the problem. The driver should be the human need. What is the human need you seek to address as a product of the business school at Duke? This is what I'm emphasizing. Remember, my slogan is the link between business opportunity and social impact. And here's the method to the madness of pursuing that dream. Money should be coming as a byproduct. But of course, to do that, you've got to be innovative, you've got to be entrepreneurial. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to think as if there's no box. So that we have cash, but also we have impact in society. Here's the examples of this. Mobile telephony. Advocate. In 1994, 70% of the Africans had never had a phone ring. Forget about using it. Hear it ring. So use may be 90% or 95%. But just hearing the ringing tone of a phone, by 1994, 70% had never had it. They had never communicated. You can imagine the need for communication, the need for the product in 1994. Entrepreneurs, business people identified a need to allow Africans to communicate. But guess what? They're making serious cash. MTN, Vodacom, Econet in Zimbabwe and many other countries. They are making serious. Econet is our biggest company now in the country. But they went in to pursue a need to say Africans must talk to each other. Communication is important for business. Communication is important for society. By 2012, 70% of Africans now have access to telecoms, mobile and fixed lines. Here is an example of what I'm pushing today. Let us start with the need. And then as we satisfy the need, the cash will come. Your charge today is to do the same for water, to do the same for energy, to do the same for banking, to do the same for sanitation in Africa, to do the same for health in Africa, transportation, agriculture, food security. But in the process, I do not want charity. I want economics. You address the need, you make your money, you have social impact, like they did for mobile telephony. And they're doing right now for the banks. Again, in Zimbabwe right now, in most African countries, 70% of the people have no access to brick-and-mortar banking. No access to brick-and-mortar banking. Guess what? If you put banking on the mobile platform, since people now have cell phones, you can now provide banking for the poor women and poor men. But in the process, you're going to make money. That is the story of M-Pesa. That is the story of EcoCash. EcoCash in Zimbabwe is going to be the biggest bank. They actually have TN as a bank, and then themselves as EcoCash. TN and EcoCash together are the biggest bank in Zimbabwe. M-Pesa, the biggest in Kenya. They're making money, but they're providing a service. Let us think about the link between business opportunity and social impact. Your charge, pick your problem, pick your human need that you care about, and go about solving it. And when you do so, cash will come. Even if you don't get cash, you are going to be a happy person because you have helped the people. But I can guarantee you that cash will come. Another philosophy. We are now banning the phrase corporate social responsibility here, Duke. I don't want to hear it here, this phrase. Banned. Where's the dean? Is the dean here? No more talking about corporate social responsibility in the business school. No more corporate social investment advocate. I'm also banning that phrase as well. We want a new phrase. Anyway, we're emphasizing a new concept. The problem with CSR, the problem with CSI, it assumes a social and moral duty. It assumes a cost of doing business. It assumes charity. I feel sorry for the poor. What can I do for the poor? I feel guilty, I've made so much money. What can I do to apologize for my riches? I don't want to hear that. That is the problem with this concept of corporate social responsibility. You are assuming a social or moral duty. You are assuming a cost of doing business. You are assuming a trade-off between community and business. The CSR assumptions are not correct. The CSI, even CSI, comes short. Here's the new framework. Can you make more money because you've helped people? Can you make more money because you've protected the environment? I think that's a much more sustainable framework. You can make more money because you are serving the community. You can make more money because you're protecting the environment. Business is more sustainable and profitable because you are addressing the history of inequality, because you are addressing the needs of the community, because you are addressing the needs of the community and the environment. I know it's hard, but I think if you can do that, if you can do what we call CSV, and by the way, value here, I'm not talking about my values or belief system, I'm talking about cash and more cash, shared cash and more cash. Benjamins. Creating shared Benjamins. Dollar bills for the company, dollar bills for the people, dollar bills for the environment at the same time. Can you do that? Don't make your money for the business and then say, now that I've made $50 million, what can I do for the environment? Now that I've made $50 million, what can I do for the people? Wrong framework. In the company's strategy, you must think about the environment and the people. So that we call embedded in your strategy the community, embedded in your strategy the environment. Then you can have creating shared value. It's a new framework. Michael Porter talks about it from Harvard and others, but we're talking about it from Africa. We're teaching them from Africa. Triple bottom line, the old slogan, society, the environment, and profit. Why can't we get all three? See, the problem is many people are very good on the people. They're the do-gooders. They sloganeer and they do about society. They don't know how to protect the environment. They don't know how to make cash. Others are very good at making cash. They don't care about the environment. Others are the Greens who talk environment. They don't have to make money. We don't want any silos anymore. Let us have a triple bottom line framework and all stakeholder theory which will give us sustainability. Value for business, value for society, value for the environment. By value, I mean cash, I mean dollars. How much money have you made for the environment? How much money have you made for the society? And how much money have you made for yourself as a business? What we do should be in the community interest all the time. What we do must be in the private interest all the time and in the national interest, but more importantly, in the environment. Here's the philosophy we're pushing. Societal needs, not just conventional economic needs, define markets. Social harms can create internal costs for firms, what we're calling internalizing the externalities. When there's a poor school in your neighborhood as a company, when there's a destroyed environment in your neighborhood as a company, it will affect your business. We are reinventing free market economics and unleashing a wave of innovation and growth. The purpose of the corporation must be to create shared value, not value for shareholders, but for stakeholders. You can compare the two, and you'll see the value of CSV. Since we're in America, let's look at American examples of this philosophy from a company, Walmart. By reducing their packaging and cutting 100 million miles from their delivery routes of its trucks, Walmart lowered carbon emissions, which is good for the environment, but they saved $200 million. You save the environment, you make money. Not to put some money to apologize for profits into the environment. Use the climate change agenda. Use the environment to make more money for yourself. Johnson & Johnson, by investing in employee wellness programs, Johnson & Johnson has saved $250 million on healthcare costs. It's a good thing to invest in your employees. It's community, it's the people. But don't think about it as charity. You're investing in yourself. You're not doing your workers a favor, you're doing yourself a favor as a company. They made money out of it. My challenge to you today is pick up the projects, pick up the needs, but identify where you can do this kind of thing, where you uplift people out of poverty and make money in the process. The new slogan is doing well by doing good. Can we do that? Let us do well, but we do well by doing good. Good for the environment, good for the people, good for the Africans, good for the citizens of the world. We frame it this way: the vision is about the link, opportunity and social. Then we have a strategy. But we must also be very clear on implementation. Sometimes in Africa we talk too much and do very little work. Let us have some doing. Implementation is important, but strategy is also important. So having a compelling vision where you link business and social impact is not enough. You must have clarity on the strategy. How are we going to do this thing? And then you must have clarity on implementation. That's what I want to see today. Now, since we're at a business school, let us talk about this word which is heavily used and never defined. I hope the professors have defined to students what strategy means. 5 conditions. When you say you have a strategy, tell the professor at Duke, you must have a unique value proposition which is different from the competitors. So when you come up with your projects today, tell me what is different that you're doing from the competitors. What are your distinctive chain of activities you are going to use to deliver on the value proposition? Number 3 is the most important, trade-offs. What are you choosing not to do? You can't be everything to all people. Otherwise, you have no strategy. Your strategy must be very difficult to copy. Choosing what not to do is as important as choosing what to do. And then, of course, mutual reinforcing activities that will allow you to deliver. But, of course, strategies for the long haul, and you must also leverage continuous improvement. I'm emphasizing this because I want us to have a strategy around the link. And then the link must be driven by strategy, and we must make sure that we are clear on what we mean by this. So when you have your little project, the vision, the activities, the strategy, make sure that those 5 points are clear in your framework. The other thing I want to emphasize is the issue of country competitiveness. What do we mean when we say a country is competitive? We look at economic performance of the country, we look at government efficiency, we look at business efficiency, we look at infrastructure, we look at entrepreneurship and innovation, we look at the quality of life. Africans are moving around those 6 areas. And Africans are being measured by others and also measuring themselves. There are about 5 categories of measures. There's the World Economic Forum, there's the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index, there's the Economic Freedom Index, there's the Human Development Index, there's the Mo Ibrahim African Governance Index. That's an African there. So if you want to be measured by an African, there's an African index there. How are you doing as an African country? Ethiopia, South Africa, Zimbabwe. And I'll just concentrate on one framework, the World Economic Forum one. The World Economic Forum says, let's look at the basic requirements. Let us look at efficiency enhancers. Let's look at innovation and sophistication of the economy. And then we rank them and rate them as given. We get our competitiveness. Countries are in 3 major categories: factor-driven countries, efficiency-driven countries, and innovation-driven countries. There are very few countries which can claim to be efficiency-driven. Even South Africa is not there yet. And very few in the world which can claim to be innovation-driven. What I want you to do today at Duke is to say, what can I do to move Africa and African countries from factor-driven to efficiency-driven? Some are in transition in between. Some are in transition between efficiency to innovation. But we need to move our countries across to the next stage. Okay? And if we want to look at the whole world, where is the world in terms of competition? Your number 1 country in the world for 2013 is Switzerland. Comes your Singapore. We want to learn from Singapore. We want to learn from Switzerland. What are they doing over there, which we can learn in Ghana? The US is slipping. By the way, number 7. Last year it was number 5. Again, America can also learn. Education there. What's happening? Why is America slipping? Let's go to our favorite country, the BRICS. The advocate spoke about the BRICS. Look at those BRICS there. Brazil 48, Russia 67, India 59, China 29, South Africa 52. What can we learn from the BRICS? What can we learn from ourselves? Where are our African countries? China, India, you see Botswana there 79, Tanzania 120, Zambia 102, out of 144. Rwanda 63. My favorite country, what are you doing down there? 132 out of 144. Well, today I want to talk about Zimbabwe. The advocate will talk about Zimbabwe. Oh, yeah. Now, the motivation for me is to compare ourselves to the world. Don't compare us. We want world standards. Look at Rwanda is my good example. 3 years ago, Rwanda was not even on the charts. They were not even recorded. Then they came into number 80. From Norway to 80. They jumped from 80 to 70. Now they're 63. All I'm saying is it is possible, it can be done. And I'm not glorifying Rwanda, I'm simply saying there are lessons there. How do you move from nowhere to 80? From 80 to 70? From 70 to 63? There are some things going on in Ghana, in Rwanda, which we can learn from. Okay? And, but most importantly, we can also compare with other countries. You see, Taiwan is number 13. They were 13 last year, South Korea 19. These are countries which used to be poor like us. Malaysia, Ireland, Nigeria, 115. Why is this important? You go into your favorite country, your African country, and look at their numbers for basic requirements, their numbers for efficiency enhancers, and see how you can drive them up. I'll give you examples of Zimbabwe. When we say basic requirements, they look at infrastructure, institutions, and those are the positions out of 144. You can ask yourself, I want to drive Zimbabwe's infrastructure from 128 to 120. What can I do? You can say, I want to push in efficiency enhancers. I'll look at labor market efficiency. You can then have a method to the madness of development. There's science involved. You can go and identify where you can have your impact. I want to work on financial market development. I want to work on business sophistication. I want to work on innovation. Growth, another oversold idea. What do we mean by economic growth, GDP growth? Is that good enough? I don't think so. Look at those good numbers. New Zealand, 185 billion, that's okay because they're doing fine as a group of people. Singapore, 260, okay. Malaysia, 213, okay. Nigeria, 239. Is that okay? No, it's not. Because there's poverty in Nigeria. There are a few chiefs with money. But the majority are not doing too well. So GDP doesn't tell us enough for Nigeria. Angola, same story, 120 billion. Okay, but poverty. My friend, South Africa, again, what about Soweto? The ghettos of Soweto, the ghettos of Cape Town. That 401 billion is misleading for South Africa. Doesn't tell us anything. Meaningless. We must talk about per capita income. We must talk about the Gini coefficient, which compares the rich and the poor, income inequality, nature of growth, social political issues, values and spirituality. We are challenging you today to say it is not enough to look at GDP numbers. Tell us about per capita income for South Africa. Tell us about the Gini coefficient for South Africa, for Zimbabwe, for Mali, for Ghana. Where is spirituality? Here's the definition. Since we're at school, we need a formula. So lest you forget. Professor, a Duke. Here's the formula for growth. Growth is 3S plus 2G plus H. Tell the professors. The growth must be strong, which means China-type growth. The growth must be shared, which means the woman in Dotito, the woman in Soweto, the woman in Kumasi is experiencing the growth. The growth must be sustainable, meaning growth for 10 years, for 20 years. And the growth must be green, low carbon. The growth must be global, meaning SADC, COMESA, and Africa. And the people must be happy. Now, which African countries have a good formula or satisfy that formula of 3S plus 2G? Global Happiness Index, Bhutan. Go and look at Bhutan. We are now measuring whether people are happy. It's called the Global Happiness Index. Are they happy in Zimbabwe? I'm not sure. I'm trying to rule them well. But I'm not sure whether they're happy. Planet Happiness Index, that one is very important. It says, it's not enough to talk about the people. Comrade Mawere. How about the frogs? How about the lions? How about the environment, the water, the mountains? Are they happy? This brings you the climate change agenda and the environmental factors. So you must measure America around the GHI, measure America around the PHI. Is the planet happy? Because there's no planet B. You might have your planet B, but there's no planet B. And you can't save the environment from China. You save it for the entire world. So that's why it's called a Global Planet Happiness Index. And we need new measures now. What is the size of the middle class as a percentage of population in America, in Switzerland, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa? When you look at that number, then you see why some countries have a huge GDP, but they are poor countries. ICT penetration, bandwidth, connectivity. I'm challenging you as the new business leaders, as the new scholars, to say, when you talk about Africa, give me numbers on these as an example. Tell me the middle class size as a percentage. Tell me ICT penetration. Tell me about bandwidth in the 54 countries. Tell me about connectivity. Tell me about infrastructure, and compare and contrast African countries around those subjects, as an example. Africa, the nature of growth. McKinsey report, the professor referred to the lions on the move. What is the nature of the African opportunity? Here are the numbers from the McKinsey report. Africa's collective GDP in 2020 will be $12.6 trillion. That's a huge opportunity. $1.4 trillion is the consumer spend. Huge potential to sell your products, to sell products in Africa. 1.1 billion Africans of working age in 2040. 128 million, the number of African households with discretionary income. That's you can invest there. And then 50% of the population in cities. Remember, urbanization is both a product of economic growth and a driver of economic growth. These are the numbers from the McKinsey report. And what are they telling us? They're telling us about the nature of the economic growth in Africa. Okay? If we were to ask you $2.6 trillion, where is it coming from? Most likely we'll say minerals, agriculture. Wrong. The biggest opportunity in Africa is not in mining. It is in ICTs, or what are called consumer-facing industries. 1.38 trillion is going to come from what are called consumer-facing industries. Banking, services, ICTs. Resources, your oil and minerals are going to be just $500 billion. Agriculture, another $500 billion. Infrastructure, $0.2 trillion. I want you to understand this. Yes to diamonds, yes to gold, yes to platinum, but that's only a quarter of our potential. Half our potential is actually in the new world. And that should be interesting to you because it requires creativity. It requires innovation to take advantage of what is called consumer-facing industries. Africa's growth opportunity is more than a resource boom. It is going to be driven by consumer-facing industries. Retail, ICT, banking and services. Huge opportunities. Half the opportunity is coming from that area. And also what we call the demographic dividend. Converting population into economics. 1 billion Africans who are educated, that's economics. 1 billion Africans who are skilled, that's economics. So the driver in Africa is going to be the consumer-facing industries and demographic dividend. What are the imperatives? Talent, ICT, advanced science and technology, demographics, entrepreneurship, innovation, and of course the notion of creating share value, which I was talking about already. There is a lot of opportunity here for those who are entrepreneurial, those who are creative. Okay? And we can go into the details of the different areas. I want to emphasize the financial services. When we say poor people, when we say the bottom of the pyramid, don't tell me there's no money to be made among poor people. You just don't know how to make that money. Paralad from Michigan University spoke about the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. You need new models, new products, new distribution networks to capture value from the bottom of the pyramid. And that's what we call traditional and BOP. Okay? And of course, we're emphasizing the region. We're emphasizing the continent. We're emphasizing that South Africa won't make it as South Africa, they'll make it as SADC. Zimbabwe won't make it as Zimbabwe, we'll make it as COMESA, as the African Union. And also the same is true for companies. The survival strategy is regional, it's continental. Look at Econet, look at SAB Miller, SABSA, Standard Bank, Africa Sun, MTN, ABC. Survival under globalization for countries is going to be regional integration. Survival under globalization for companies is going to be regional. And the demographic dividend can be shown that we're going to overtake China. Here are the numbers again showing India, Africa, and China. And you can see that around 2015, we're overtaking both India and China in terms of numbers. Hopefully those Africans will be educated, and then we can have a demographic dividend. There's no point in having a huge population which is unskilled. Let us make sure that they're educated. This one has been emphasized before. When you go regional, you get scale. Also, intra-Africa trades, intra-Africa infrastructure. The advocate spoke about this. Let us make sure we build the roads to promote intra-Africa trade. We build the railways, the airline networks, so that we can travel from Africa to Africa. So we need to make sure that there's regional and continental infrastructure to support regional integration. And then we need to also think about the value addition issues. People have argued that you can't process platinum in Africa because there's no critical mass. But once we integrate, the critical mass will be obtained. And then the issue about that is shown as follows. We must address this subject of beneficiation. There are many industrialists who are here. We have spoken about beneficiation for 60 years, advocate. Kwame Nkrumah spoke about, let us not sell cocoa, let us sell chocolate. 60 years ago, we're still selling cocoa. Why are we not beneficiating our platinum, our diamond, and our gold? There are good reasons why it is not happening, and I want us to address those reasons. We pursue easier trade options where you sell raw, it's easier. We have a quick buck for corrupt regimes and officials who sell the raw materials to the West. Lack of a clear industrialization strategy. Absence of an enabling environment. When you say beneficiation, you need new technology, new human capital, new cash. Let us create that environment. The North won't allow you, or rather encourage you, to beneficiate, because that is their competitive advantage. Can you imagine producing computers, producing cars in Zimbabwe and South Africa and selling them to North America? You can do it, but they will not encourage you to do it because the reverse is taking place. Japan is selling all the cars to us. It's not in their interest to encourage us to produce cars to sell to Japan. So the Africans must work together to make sure they do drive this idea of value addition. New cash. Let us think together today to say, how do I address these concerns to make value addition a reality? Okay? This is another interesting one. It came out a bit in the earlier session. When we got our independence in 1957 in Ghana, what we got was political independence. We changed the political laws in Ghana. We didn't change the economic laws in Ghana. We didn't change the economic laws in Nigeria. When we got our independence in Zimbabwe in 1980, we changed the voting rights and got political power, never changed the economic laws. The same applies to South Africa 1994. Beautiful constitution. The mining law is a colonial law in South Africa. The mining law in Zimbabwe is a colonial law in Zimbabwe. The law governing oil in Ghana is colonial and decadent and moribund. You have a duty and obligation to change the mining laws in South Africa, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, and the laws governing oil in Ghana. Why? Because our laws are empowering investors against the people. The asset underground has no value. We give claims to companies for free. If we put value to the unmined asset, the unmined oil, that value can go to the African. That's what they've done in Norway, by the way. We're not even being revolutionary here. We're learning from Norway, from Australia and Canada. In Norway, they've oil. They've managed to do the exploration and do the quantification. And when you go there, they'll tell you, here's a claim, it's worth $2 billion of oil. And that's our contribution as Norway. And in fact, in Norway, they say only 7% is foreigners, 93% is Norway. In Australia and Canada, they've done their geology, they've done the exploration, and they have their pegs. So they go and list on the stock exchange in Australia, they list in Canada. Their claims, the oil underground has value. In Africa, the value is zero. We need some creativity around this subject. But you can't do it alone in Zimbabwe without Ghana participating. You can't do it alone in South Africa without Zambia, because you won't succeed. We need a Pan-African consensus on this subject. But it's a tough one because we have gotten our independence, Zimbabwe 33 years, South Africa 18, 19 now, 60 for the other guys. We never change our economic laws. They are colonial laws. And the advocate was talking about how we're trying to address it using BEE and others. That's great, but we need to also change our laws. In Zimbabwe, our law is about 1912, 1920s. Okay? The other challenge I want to give you today is that don't believe that the most advanced science is for Japan, is for America and Europe. What we can do within Africa is low-level science. Actually, One interesting thing we are discovering is that some of the most advanced science, nanotechnology, biotechnology, neuroscience, ICTs, cloud computing, big data, robotics and mechatronics, are more applicable, cheaper to apply, more relevant in a poor country than in the US, than in Japan. Let's take cell phone banking. Why would you bank on the cell phone in Durham or in New York when the bank is next door? Why would you bank on your cell phone? But I said in Zimbabwe, 70% of our people have no banking, brick and mortar. So which means the mobile platform for banking is more relevant to poor Soweto, to poor Zimbabwe, to poor Ghana than New York and London. And in any case, New York has wires. London has wires. Tokyo has wires. Whereas Soweto, Cholocho, Kumasi has nothing. So you can go wireless, WiMAX, Wi-Fi. So you can have a better application of wireless technology in a poor country than in a rich country. In other words, you can leapfrog from the 19th century to the 21st century by using science. So again, I want you to think about this. Don't assume that when you say nanotechnology, when you say MEMS, microelectromechanical systems, when you say biotechnology, the Human Genome Project, when you say neuroscience, these things are for Japan, these things are for America. Actually, sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, sometimes these things are more economically applicable, they are cheaper to apply, they are more relevant in poor countries. Identify that technology. Identify that opportunity and pursue it. Cloud computing. We're now storing the data in the sky. In the rich countries, they have databases, they have infrastructure. We have nothing. So we are better positioned to store our data in the clouds. Big data. We're talking about exploration, geology, and mining. When we do our geological survey in Africa, we can leverage big data as a management tool. I want to go against conventional wisdom and challenge you to identify some of the most advanced science out of MIT, out of NASA, out of Duke, which you can take and make a difference in Africa, in the emerging markets. Here are some of the examples. Agra. You've heard about the Agra program. That's Kofi Annan and Strive Masiwa and others. They're saying, why don't we use biotechnology to develop high-yield seeds, to develop better fertilizers? Why don't you use ICT to provide marketing information for farmers? Why don't you use ICT to provide information about the weather? They're using advanced science to bring about a new agricultural green revolution in Africa. I spoke about banking, M-Pesa, and EcoCash. Do you know SMSing? I see you SMSing. Where is global best practice on SMS going to come from? The global best practice for SMSing. Rich people don't SMS their phone because they've got money on their phones. Poor people SMS. So the poor do more SMSing than the rich. Is that not correct? Now, so which means the lessons and the global best practice around SMSing will come from the poor communities to the rich. Right now in the whole world, there is no one who has done cell phone banking better than M-Pesa, better than EcoCash. Japan, America, no, because why would you do that? The bank is next door. The bank is in my office. The bank is in my house. So which means now, M-Pesa and EcoCash are taking advanced science, advanced technology, applying them in Africa, making a difference in Africa, and teaching Europe, teaching America, teaching the world. Biotechnology, I spoke about, robots in mining and agriculture and ports, education. Now, education this is the interesting one. Can you imagine right now, I hope Duke has done the same. MIT, all their notes are online right now. And I hope yours are online. Do you know what that means? A woman, a poor woman in Zimbabwe, a poor woman in Ghana, or a poor man without a toilet, without water, but with connectivity and bandwidth, will be able to read the notes from Harvard and engage the professors at Harvard and get the best thinking in the world on a subject without a toilet. I'm sure you can't imagine that. But we don't have toilets in Africa in some places anyway. But we have connectivity. We have cell phones. But that's revolutionary now. I mean, what you're having at Duke, right now you could get this thing online in Zimbabwe, in Ghana. Education has brought a revolution, technology. The platform, the blackboard, the role has changed. The teacher, the role has changed. The textbook, the role has changed. The content is ICT driven. Then global access. I mean, I've got a 7-year-old and 8-year-old, and he was Googling. I was Googling this, the tallest one. I'm thinking if I went to school with Google, I would finish my degree at 8 years or something. How can this kid, the kid is Googling at 7? Anything you ask him, actually, by the way, we need to change the way we teach. There's this conference called TED. There was a presentation there. They said, actually, we're teaching the wrong way. We're teaching for the 18th century. When you ask a kid, for example, what is this and this and this? The right answer is, why are you asking me? Or, what's your next question? Or, I'll look it up. This business of saying, if you said to a kid, what is the highest mountain in the world? Mount Everest. That's the wrong answer. The question is, why are you asking me that? That's a better answer. Or, what's your next question? Or, I'll look it up on the internet. Anyway, I'm saying, this whole notion of education, it can't be business as usual with the ICT revolution. We now talk about e-health, we talk about remote surgery, and all these things. Look at that number, the correlation between penetration and GDP. When you invest in ICT, it is going to have a major impact on your GDP. Look at the impact on education and banking, the impact on the fiscus. Convergence, this is another revolution. One instrument, your computer, your TV, your watch, everything is going to be one instrument. What are you doing in the field of convergence? How are you leveraging convergence to drive the African agenda? Your iPad can do everything. It's the phone, it is the camera, it is everything. What does that mean for the African continent? Increase of cell phone penetration by 10% leads to increase in GDP by 1%. That is one technology. And we've talked about those areas there. And since we're here in the US, you can look at Steve Jobs, yeah? These were his philosophies: empathy, focus on a few products, imputation, innovation, and reality distortion field. The last one says, don't say I can't. It can be done. He was such a strong personality, he forced engineers to design products that defy physics. And here is what one individual did. One individual. A revolution in computing, a revolution in mobile telephony, a revolution in music, a revolution in movies, a revolution in education. Why can't we have a revolution in Africa? Just Africa. He thought about making a dent to the universe. I don't want you to make a dent to the universe. I just want to make a dent to the African continent through business. Just a dent to the African continent. Universe, bigger than the world. And he did. I mean, if you can do this, I'm sure that's a discernible dent to the universe. One individual. All of us collectively, let us have an impact on Africa. Let us make sure Africa is connected. The entire connection of the African continent to the world. The importance of infrastructure. Cost of freight, 12%, whereas the average should be 5.4%, in America 3.9%. The cost of infrastructure. And we work together in SADC and COMESA to drive this agenda and do the regional blocks. Don't think one African country, think regional. Don't think South Africa, don't think Ghana, don't think Nigeria, think ECOWAS, think Maghreb, think the African continent, and drive these blocks and work up the structure. Now, we're moving to energy now. We're talking about cell phones. Look, this is what Bill Gates says. Alternative energy will be the next biggest global phenomenon since the advent of the cell phone. What can we do here in terms of business and impact around energy? Energy poverty. Solar, water, and wind. This is the next wave. And we have companies like Econet who are doing interesting things in the country by providing mobile power. Okay? And then in Zimbabwe, we're pushing what we call the cluster strategy, where we're defining the notion of clusters, coming out of Michael Porter from Harvard, comparative advantage, competitive advantage. So we break up the whole country into clusters. We have the tourism cluster. We have the platinum cluster. We we have the diamond cluster, we have the heavy industry cluster. What can you do in a particular cluster? Identify your clusters for Ghana, identify your clusters for Nigeria, and then move. Okay? As we conclude, I don't want this to be another talk shop. Martin, we didn't come here to just have a good time. When I am done here, I want to see examples. What is the project you are going to be involved in? And show me the business opportunity. Show me the social impact. What are you going to do around adoption? And where is that science which is unique that you're going to use in Africa? Which country are you talking about? Or which countries? Which businesses, which institutions are you going to be involved with? The diaspora, what is the role of the diaspora, the African diaspora on the African continent? And by the way, when I say diaspora, you don't all have to come back home. You can do things from here. That's what the Indians have done, the Chinese have done, and the Jews have done. And the Africans are trying in Ghana, they're trying in Senegal, they're trying in South Africa. Let us have targeted efforts where we identify the role of the diaspora. So when we are done, I want to see some links, some lessons from India and China. But more importantly, I want to see an implementation matrix. Who is going to do what? When are they doing it? What is the opportunity? What are the measures of success or lack of it? What are the milestones in the activity? Where is the money going to come from? What skills are required? When are we going to do all these things? How are you going to monitor our activities? How are we going to evaluate our activities? How are we going to feed back to the team? So in addition to sharing and learning today, I hope that we identify some things to do. I hope we have an implementation matrix that says we are going to do the following and the ownership of the roles as I have defined here. And as governments in Africa, our role is certainty. We must provide certainty. And we're not doing too well in Zimbabwe, but the advocate will speak on Zimbabwe. We must have predictability. Things must be predictable in the country. We must create an enabling policy framework in the country. The government are not the doers, they are enablers, they are facilitators. We must create an environment which provides for the link. Remember, my message is the link between business and impact. What are governments doing to provide an environment where business opportunity and social impact are linked? And I'll work with my colleagues in the public sector to make sure those things are done. But you must play your part in terms of making this happen. So this is what I came to do here, to say to you there are major opportunities in Africa, and they're open to anyone. However, a sustainable way of addressing those opportunities is to link them to impact. And in fact, I've argued that it is unsustainable to pursue business without addressing social concerns. It's unsustainable to pursue business without addressing the environment. Let us have an approach that says we seek to create shared value. We seek to link business opportunity to solutions to African needs. And yes, it can be done. Yes, we can. Obama was right on that one only. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Tatenda siyabonga for this opportunity.
Raul will help manage the
Yeah, but I don't need chairs. I don't need chairs. That's it. Yeah, okay. Just kidding. I'll manage him. It's okay. Okay. You get. I will not sit. Okay. Okay. We don't believe in monologues. We believe in dialogue. And so I hope to take a lot of questions, and in doing so, no holds barred. I'm a soldier. I take bullets. So you can say whatever you want, comment or question. But he's going to ask 3 very brief questions.
Okay.
And then I get rid of you, then I take to the people. The people and the people.
Actually,
so 3 very brief questions, and then I go to the audience. Go ahead.
Actually, Rotimi has a good idea. I think we'll alternate questions between myself and the audience. So I'll ask a question, then the audience, and then back
No.
to them.
No. I want to do it differently. you ask your okay. Questions, very brief, just 3 questions. Yeah, this is... Okay, just briefly, 3 brief questions, and then I move.
Would you like to have a seat, or Are you fine standing over there?
No, it's okay.
Okay, fine. I think I'll stand too. Okay, so my first question is, oftentimes in many different parts of Africa, including Zimbabwe, it takes many signatures and approvals for international as well as domestic businesses to start their own business. In your opinion, how do you feel like African governments, are they doing enough to expedite the change in such bureaucratic policies so as to not miss out on the opportunities?
Put my slides up. Very important question. Put my slides up. If you look at the World Bank doing business numbers, that's our major problem. Mm-hmm. And we are working in Zimbabwe in particular to move as quickly as possible to where we can do what we call a one-stop shop, okay. So that we can be able to push our investors and be able to do everything in 3 days. Okay. But we have not managed to do that. We're trying to learn from those who have done that. But it's a very important factor, because if you can't register a business quickly, you are not competitive. And she gave an example of a comparison between Zimbabwe and South Africa. Mm-hmm. When an investor looks at those numbers, they go to a better country. So it's a major problem, but we're trying to solve it by having a one-stop shop to reduce it to 3 days. But we haven't finalized, we haven't achieved it, but other African countries, Rwanda has done very well with that subject. And I think Ghana and Senegal have also made moves. But it's a major problem which we need to resolve. That says, how do we quickly move? I wanted to show you this thing here. Okay, a second here. It's a very important subject, and I want to show you where you, so that your students, you can go where you can find this stuff here. Yeah. Now, on those things, if you look at what we call the World Bank ease of doing business, it's a major problem there. If you look at the Economic Freedom Index, a major problem there. And even on the WEF numbers as well. So, again, it's an area, by the way, there are no problems. By the way, there are no challenges, just possibilities. Let us become possibility thinkers. Every problem is a potential opportunity. Every challenge is a possibility. So that in itself is actually an opportunity for us to work with a country and say, how do we move your registration from 3 months to 3 days?
Okay. Perfect. The next question. So recently, I believe your President Mugabe has threatened to nationalize, or at least partially nationalize, the platinum mines. So the question for you is, given such actions by your president, how do you go about gaining and maintaining the trust of international investors? Why would they want to invest in Zimbabwe as opposed to China or India or Brazil?
I think our problem is more managing perception and more communication. And by the way, our president doesn't act without me. I'm part of the government. So if there are any mistakes, I'm responsible. So there's no Mugabe action, there's no Zanu action, there's Zimbabwean action. And the deputy prime minister is here. So guilty as charged. The problem we're having in the mining sector is that, I've talked about it here. We gave these claims to Implats for free. We gave them to Anglo for free. We gave them to whoever for free, which is our problem, not their problem. It's our laws. Mm-hmm. Our laws allowed us, and foolish us went along. And we gave, for example, with Implats, we gave them these claims for free. Foolish us. Now that we are waking up a little bit, we're saying, but we gave you those things for free, and you are sitting on them. Can you do something on them? Then they say, well, okay, well, we're going to give you back some of the land. But guess what? You know, this one now, we'll give it back to you, but it's now worth 150 million. And by the way, they have the right to do so because it's theirs. We were foolish enough to give them for free. Now they're giving back to us for 150 million. The law allows that to happen. But you can see it's very unfair because they've not done anything on the land. It's called green territory. But they're clever. You know, by the way, this subject is a very tough subject. These investors, they come to Africa, they get claims for free. They go and list in Australia, they go and list in Canada and borrow against the claim. They borrow 5 billion and say, we are now investing in your country. And why can't we as Africans take the claims and borrow ourselves? So what has happened with the platinum is we are trying to reverse our foolishness by foolish methods as well. Because I think the correct thing would be to change our laws first. Because what we're doing now is to say, but we gave you this land for free. Why are you charging us now? But they say, but we didn't ask you to give us for free. You give us for free. You pay now. So we have taken back, because they're not, it's called use it or lose it principle. But it's problematic because at law, our Zimbabwe law, Zimplus owns that asset. And Zimplus can do whatever they want with their asset. So we've taken it without changing our law. So what we'll do is we're going to change our law to allow us to take it in a more legitimate way. But as you can see, it's a very tough subject. But there's an injustice which is historical, but maybe we should correct it the correct way as opposed to do it in a haphazard way. But what we're doing is we're talking to them and working with them to resolve that matter. But I want you to know that in Zimbabwe there's an inclusive government. Yeah, I know Westerners don't like that because they want Mugabe to go. Mugabe is working with Tsvangirai, he's working with me, and I say it's okay. I know better than Obama. I know better than Cameroon. What's good for my country? At this juncture, the country requires stability, the country requires a new constitution, the country requires reconciliation. That's what we've decided as Zimbabweans to do. The biggest opponent of Mugabe is Tsvangirai. He is the prime minister under Mugabe. We know best what is good for us as Zimbabweans. The AU has supported the project, SADC has supported the project, South Africa is the facilitator. So what we're saying is sometimes there is an element of patronization by Westerners when they say Mugabe this, Mugabe that. There's a Zimbabwean government. So if there are any faults, I take responsibility and I'll fix them.
Perfect. Next question is, so according to the Brookings Institution, of the 127 million African children of primary school age, 61 million will enter adolescence without having the most basic of literacy skills. That is obviously a stark contrast to your PhD at Oxford. So the question for you is, can you comment on the importance of this factor towards realizing Africa's economic potential?
Again, no problem there, no challenge there, just an opportunity. A huge opportunity. Why can't we address that using ICT, for example? ICT platform, ICT products, ICT access. Again, I'm trying to say every problem we look at, literacy, education, sanitation, water, let's spin it around and say, how can I make money out of it and help somebody? So I can see a huge opportunity there in terms of addressing it using modern technology, addressing it by investing in education. You know, that's one thing we've done better than South Africa, actually. I think for our sins, for our sins in Zimbabwe, in the first 10 years, we put lots of money in education. Yeah? Now we are messing up a bit. South Africa has not done that. You know, I'm sure they can defend themselves, but I think in the first 18 years, they've not done justice on investing in education. Education is a 20-year project, it's a 30-year project. You don't see the benefit, you see it in 30 years. And literacy, human capital are some of the strengths of Zimbabwe, which are a product of the investment in the first 20 years of Zimbabwe. So cash, innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology can address that challenge. But always think about it as an opportunity, as a possibility. And again, let's have the clever and thoughtful ideas from here to address that.
Okay. One last question before we open it up to the audience. So many people come to business school with the idea of transitioning into a different industry or a different career, and you seem to have done that particularly well. So can you tell us something more about how did your experience in academia help prepare you for your experience in business? And similarly, how did your life in business help you prepare for your life in politics? How did you go about these transitions? What advice do you have for us?
Yeah, it's been tough, actually. I've not done spectacularly well. I must say to you that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything, remember that thing I gave you about the 5 conditions for strategy, and I gave you trade-offs. No pain, no gain. You know, you take a plunge and you lose out on some things, yeah? But if you don't make that sacrifice, there will be no change. And what I'm urging to young people is to say, look, we can't all be in academia, the smart people in academia. We can't all be in business, the smart people in business. We can't all be in media, the smart people in media. We can't all be in the diaspora, the smart people in the diaspora. Let us have some of our smart people, not all of them, some of them in the public sector, running countries, doing public policy. Because if you have not so clever people in public policy, they'll make the wrong policies for business, wrong policies for academia, wrong policies for the media. It's my personal wish to see more African superstars as governors of states, as MPs, as ministers, as presidents of countries. I'll go to the world. Look at Lee Kuan Yew, PhD from Cambridge. I'm not an elitist, but I want to see capacity running a country. Mahathir, a medical doctor driving Malaysia. David Cameron, first class from Oxford, and Glenn, a first class. They are allowing some of their best minds to run their countries. Obama and Hillary. There's not a single CEO in the world who can claim to be smarter than Hillary. Tell me, who? Who is smarter than Hillary? Who? I mean, I'm saying America is allowing some of their best minds to run their country. What are you doing in Zimbabwe? We give it to you. You haven't done so. Anyway, I'm encouraging the young people here to say, look, please go into business, go into academia, go into journalism, but some of you must take a plunge and run African countries, become MPs, become senators, become governors, become presidents, so that we can operate at the same level with Obama and Hillary. Not some of these people you're presenting from the continent. Now, but to do that is not easy. It's quite tough out there because they will give you a run for your money, right? so I'm emphasizing the plunge. I know you love Mandela. Oh, Mandela. Are you prepared to give away 27 of your life, 27 years to be a Mandela? That's what it takes to be a Mandela. Well, we can think of long walk to freedom. You want a short run to the bank, right? Long walk to freedom, 27 years. I'm emphasizing the notion of sacrifice. So don't say, I was working with McKinsey out of Chicago. I mean, I'm back in Zimbabwe. We earn about what, $1,000 a month or something, right? And you get roughed up and attacked in the media. So it's actually a sacrifice. But I'm all right. You know why? Because of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. What was the highest stage that Maslow talked about? Self-actualization. Professor, that's wrong. We've changed that. Okay, let me teach you a Duke. I'll teach Duke now. Maslow spoke about basic needs up to shelter and self-actualization. We revised it a couple of years ago. Self-actualization is not good enough. There's what we call self-transcend, go beyond self, leave a legacy. The Mandela legacy, the Gandhi legacy, beyond yourself. So self-actualization is very low. We're seeking legacy, making a difference beyond yourself. So now, although it is rough out there, you get an opportunity to have impact, to leave a legacy and make a difference. And by the way, here's my parting shot to that question. I know there are people who say, I'm a superstar banker, I don't care about politics. I'm a superstar academic, I don't care about, I'm a superstar pastor, I'm a superstar. You are a superstar nothing. As an African, you never be respected unless and until Africa has done well as a continent. Here's my message to the business people in the house, my message to the MBA superstars in the house, my message to Obama. Obama will never be respected as a person of African extraction unless Africa has done well as a continent. Message to Oprah, to Michael Jordan. All of you who have some African blood, take it personally. Do something about Nigeria. Do something about Zimbabwe. Do something about the African continent. I've seen it. When I go to Davos, World Economic Forum, I'm there bowling out of control. And I'm talking loud. And they say to me, where are you from? Then I try to avoid the question. I say, where are you from? Then I say, I'm coming out of MIT, NASA, and McKinsey. No, but where are you from? Then I say, Zimbabwe. No, Zimbabwe. Tell us about cholera. Tell us about poverty. Tell us about your next elections. So you see, my personal brand is a function of my national brand. Already my superstardom is already being curtailed by my national brand. So all of you as human beings, all of you as Africans, take a vested interest in fixing the African continent. They'll never respect you. They say, you're an exception. Where you come from, you're not very able. I'm Obama, I'm the president of the US. You are a Luo. How come Kenya's messed up? What's up? You are an African. That's why you call it African American. Thank you very much.
Okay. So at this point, we have about 10 minutes left, and we'd like to open it up to the audience. And the lady at the back, please. I think there's a mic for you.
So my name is Sarah Trent, and I'm from the Duke Global Health Institute. I have a question about technology. I agree that cell phone use is prevalent, but we're running into a lot of challenges because locations don't have correct networking and bandwidth to do programs that aren't, on an individual application level, especially around healthcare delivery. So I wanted to ask about the motivations, where those motivations come from in terms of developing sufficient networking and bandwidth. Is that a responsibility of the government or the private sector, particularly in terms of health? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Put up my slide, please. Yeah, very important question, because it's one thing to talk about these things, but where is the connectivity? Where is the infrastructure? Where is the access? So we got to address these issues. Infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, energy, unless we hook up solar and so on, costs and pricing, competitiveness. So for us to effectively address health using technology, to address banking using technology, we need to address these constraints. And I think we have a long way to go, because bandwidth then talks about speed. It talks about whether you're going to be able to do the work you want to do. So another challenge is to say, as we pursue the application of technology in health, the application of technology in banking, the application of technology in education, where can we sort out connectivity? How can we sort out bandwidth? How can we sort out penetration? And that, once we've done this, then we can then be innovative about the use of technology. So, but we are trying to do this, and some countries like Kenya have done a good job. Rwanda is a good example. But just to show you how tough this subject is of technology, mindset-wise, in Zimbabwe, we are not allowed to use to bring technology into cabinet. And I had to actually tussle with some security people when I had my iPad. Then I said, what is this? What is that thing? You'll be communicating with the master. So the mindset in our politicians, our leaders, is fear of technology. So forget these things. These are the technical problems. There's a mindset issue. This thing. And then I said, but why are you doing? Rwanda has it, Kagame has it in the cabinet. South Africa has it. Then you find people are shifting and shift. But it's a major mindset issue. And also control, dictatorship, and technology are not compatible. If you believe in controlling information, you can't go with these things. Because this means on my cell phone, on my iPad, I'm reading newspapers from all over the world. And if you believe in controlling newspapers, controlling the TV, you won't even... So in addition to the physical constraints, I want us to embrace technology mentally, as leaders, as business people, as teachers. And teachers must also move, because your role is being modified. The classroom is different. The blackboard has a different role. So let's address these problems plus mindset, and then we can be able to address your question. But thank you very much for that question. But let us take these as opportunities for business.
All right, the next question. Near the back.
And thought leadership, particularly as it applies to Zimbabwe. 94% unemployment, 80% below the poverty line. And there's a dynamic in investing in Africa where you have the beneficiaries and where you have the partners. We want to create an Africa that has a symbiotic relationship with investors, where it's a win-win and there isn't, a deficit on either side. If I look at Zimbabwe particularly, how do you go about creating internal stability so it becomes a worthy partner to partner up with when you have all of these political anomalies, when you have a referendum that takes place in a climate of repression, crackdowns on the key players, an election that may take place later this year or not, we don't know, and whether or not that takes place in a free and fair environment. What to you is the singular biggest obstacle towards Zimbabwe stabilizing and becoming a valuable partner to play in the global space?
Okay. Thank you very much. Good question. I deliberately did not talk about Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe will take 2 days. So I decided to talk about issues that are generic to Africa, but I can talk about Zimbabwe for a minute. The mandate of the inclusive government is the creation of conditions for freeness and fairness for our election. That's all we have to do. If we can deliver a credible election where the losers accept defeat and congratulate the winners, and the winners form a government on their own, that is a measure of success for us. And we're still a long way from that, but we're working the agenda. Creation of conditions for freeness and fairness of our election. Delivering a free and fair election where the losers will say, yes, the outcome is correct. Yes, you have won. You can run the country. If we can do that, because that's what we didn't do in 2008. The referendum, which has just gone by, was about the Constitution. One of our major problems was the Constitution. Some of the problems were coming from a flawed Constitution. So we spent about 4 years working together, trying to reach out to the people, and came up with a document, which was a compromise document of the key political parties. And this document has gone through an election now, and it was endorsed by 3 million people out of 4.6 million voters, which is about 50%, and 95% voted yes. Yes, during the referendum, there were a few arrests here and there. Again, it shows you that we are still on our way to that environment where our elections are going to be free and fair. The referendum was a non-event because we all agreed, except a few people with 5%. The election will be harder because now there's contestation among the parties. But can we make sure our electoral laws, can we make sure the police, the security apparatus, can we make sure the media is supportive of our democracy? That is our challenge. And we've done that through a number of reforms, media reforms, which are still work in progress, changes of our electoral laws, changing of our constitutional framework, which is the Constitution, so that somehow we can deliver a free and fair election. But I must say that, yes, we've come short in some parts, but we've made some progress to get the protagonists who were jailing each other and killing each other in 2008 to be in the same government. That is some progress. To get the protagonists to agree on a document, that is some progress. To agree on reforms for the elections and also for media, that is some progress. But I think the proof of the pudding will be in the eating in terms of actually the election itself. But we are determined to make sure that it happens. Your first part, we need both, thought advocacy and thought leadership. We need both, all of the above. We are sick and tired of being consumers of other people's ideas. We want to be creators of knowledge. We want to be participants in the construction of knowledge. We want to be teaching America about technology, about applying technology, and learn from them too. And at the same time, we want to apply the technology and apply the thoughts. We're sick and tired of this doctrine that says, because of the nature of your economies, you must be happy to have a vaccine for malaria, you must work on HIV/AIDS, you must work on water. No, I want to work on robotics and mechatronics. I taught smart people at MIT. They couldn't believe that I went to school without shoes, because I'm teaching them this smart. Africans are able to do the best, and there should be no area where we don't play a role. Thought leadership in every area we play a role, but of course we are going to be judged, like I said earlier on, by the success or lack of it of our countries. But this forum, I want it to concentrate on possibilities and emphasize that every challenge is a possibility. I want them to think beyond Zimbabwe. That's why I didn't say much about Zimbabwe, because good stories coming from Zimbabwe, good stories from Kenya, good stories from South Africa, from Ethiopia, and we wanted to concentrate on that framework of linking business opportunity and social impact. But I think Zimbabwe will make it. We just need to work harder and also realize that we are going to be masters of our own destiny. And working with SADC and the AU, I think we shall overcome.
Perfect. I think we only have 5 minutes left, so it's the last question, whoever wants to ask. Gentleman at the back.
Thank you. You mentioned possibilities, and one of the things you highlighted was the financial sector. But our speaker beforehand talked about the problems that many companies were facing, where they were having to raise money in dollars and then translate that to the local currency, and it was affecting their abilities to acquire oil or the necessary resources. So in combination with that, I was wondering what you were doing to encourage local businesses to operate in your local currency, or what you were doing to encourage multinational companies to operate in your local currency as well?
I think that is the best question of the day, because we're number one in Africa on that one. We have no local currency. So don't worry, just bring your US dollars. In Zimbabwe, what we did in 2009, because our inflation was 500 million%, we destroyed our own local currency. So we are now trading in rands, we're not trading US dollars. So don't worry about currency. We don't even know what currency mean anymore. We just take them. Anyway, having said that, other countries have exchange control issues and exchange control regulations. But in Zimbabwe in particular, is one of our strengths. But however, in the long run, there is no country which has ever developed without its own currency. But our challenge in Zimbabwe is to say, we don't deserve a currency. We must make sure our economy is working well. We must make sure we fix our country so that our country deserves a currency. Otherwise, right now, we don't deserve one. After we fixed our currency, our country, and our country is strong, we'll reintroduce a currency. So I'll leave that question on currencies to those with currency. We don't have any. But it should not be a problem because most of their currencies are strong. The rand and other currencies are very strong, so you shouldn't have a problem around that. And if there's a problem, make it an opportunity and make money out of it. I don't want to hear word challenge and problem anymore. I want to hear opportunity. I want to hear possibility. You must become possibility thinkers. That's what we want to see today. See possibilities, don't see problems. Is there anyone who's dying to say, ask a question? Just the last one? Yes, just last one.
Thank you. Sir, I'd like to say thank you for the thought-provoking presentation. And it's actually a rare opportunity to be here. I'm a regional Nigerian, and my family has been here as well, and recently decided to come to join the family. But I've been nursing the torment, the concern about Africa. Now, no doubt, everything you've said today are things that are known, both to Africans and also Africans in diaspora. The major challenge of Africa is not just the knowing. It's also the ability for individuals like yourself to educate your colleagues and actually have them carry on with the same drive that you are. What impact and what steps are you taking personally to educate co-Africa leaders like yourself to think strategically and identify steps to achieve this? That's my first question. Second question, if you think about all this, you achieve, and the focus of the younger generation is basically accessing and achieving the greens, the neurals, without understanding this focus for sustainability and growth. What, in your opinion, is the way forward for youths who makes up the demographic of this meeting right now, with core African interest, who wants to basically connect with youths in Africa with the same interest of developing Africa? What advice do you have for us to be able to really create a platform where it obviously helps youths in joining forces together, irrespective of their physical location, to impact Africa? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very loaded question, and I think it will be answered during the course of the day. But the first part of the answer is to say, stop saying, I'm originally from Nigeria. Say, I'm Nigerian. I've just said your president is Kenyan. If I can call Obama Kenyan, Luo, why can't you call yourself Nigerian? So I don't want to hear this originally from. Say, I'm Zimbabwean, but currently I'm in the US. I'm Nigerian, I'm resident here. I'm Kenyan, I'm the president of America. Once you do that, the two questions you're asking will be solved. Once you do that, I'm Kondi Rice, I came from Nigeria 600 years ago. I'm Colin Powell, Once you do that, you see that it will automatically create synergies between the Africans on the continent and the Africans in America. Whether they call themselves African Americans or originally Nigerian, then we are one big family. We cease to be a minority. Minority program. Who is a minority? There are 1.1 billion Africans on the continent, plus the Africans in America, plus those in Argentina, in Brazil, and the islands. 2 billion black people. Why are you a minority? Because you say originally Nigerian. So let us start thinking in a Pan-African mindset that says all people of African extraction are the same people, irrespective of location. All people of African descent are the same people with the same agenda, irrespective of geography and location and persuasion. That will answer question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, 4, 5, and 7 of your issues. Leadership on the first question. What can I suggest? I think it's a tough one. We must work together. We must motivate each other. But in terms of great leaders or leadership, 4 things. You must understand how great leaders think. How do they think? It's different from the non-leaders. How do they prepare? It's different from the losers. How do they work? It's very different from the non-performers. How do they live? Greatness is defined by how you think. Are you a possibility thinker? Greatness is defined by how you prepare. Greatness is defined by how you work. Greatness is defined by how you live. But I can do another tutorial on greatness. But today I'm talking about business opportunities and social impact. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. But I want to advocate.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Mutambara. It was our honor to host you today at Fuqua, and thank you, Raul, as well. We are going to be breaking for lunch right now. Lunch will be served in the Fox Winter Garden right now until 1:25, and we'd ask that you be in the rooms that the panels are hosted in at 1:30 sharp. If you have any questions, all of our board members will be standing right outside Janine. If not, enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you back at the panel sessions. Thank you.